made to you so special? Nothing. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn.
Okay, guys, Frank Stout, just a guy from Brooklyn. I'm here to bring you a big ranking for October for Halloween. 31 unholy horror movies. I'm talking movies involving the devil, demons, unholy spirits. I want to give a quick shout out to Josh Krubner from Restricted Media on Facebook and my man Mark Heaslip from Liverpool, England, who resides here in Brooklyn. He's my guy. So quick background, I was raised in a heavy Christian background. So horror movies were something that I just couldn't watch as a child. But it wasn't until I was a teenager and I was given, membership to a video store. And that's when like the floodgates opened and I was able to run out and watch all these big movies, especially movies like this, which were just so taboo when I was a kid. For those of you non-horror fans, we horror fans, we're very big during October. We do this thing where we watch 31 horror movies in 31 days for the month. It's really fun because you watch some old stuff, you watch some new stuff. And so I started early so that I could compile this list and give it to you guys and we can have some fun. But people always ask me why 31 movies in October. My answer is tradition. Before we get started, let's quickly go through my rules so we can get to it. Rule number 1, spoilers. I do have some new movies that came out this year, so heavy spoiler warning here. If you come across a movie that you haven't seen, skip the chapter or come back. Rule number 2, always, I say this in every video, this is a favorites list, not a best list. Kicking things off at honorable mention number 1 is The Final Conflict, also known as The Omen 3. It came out in 1981. A very young Sam Neill plays grown-up Damien. He's grown to power, but fears the return of, you guessed it, Jesus Christ, who he refers to as the Nazarene. And yes, he's still being hunted by the Vatican with those pesky little daggers. I have a ton of nostalgia for this movie as it's one of the first that I got to see at a very young age. There's 3 big scenes that really were vivid even when I was a kid. First is one involving a baby. It always just disturbed the shit out of me. The baby was like all burned and everything. It was kind of messed me up. The second was Damien grabbing his love interest from behind. They have some rough sex, but I always wondered exactly what kind of sex that was.
I'm not even a backdoor virgin. And by the way, that hurts. I couldn't even go to Flags the next day. I had to stay home and sit on a bag of frozen peas.
And the third is the ending scene for more than one reason. One is he gets stabbed by one of the daggers just as Jesus himself appears. I can't think of any other horror movie where at the end of the movie, Jesus appears to like save the day. But in the original Omen, it's clearly stated that Damien needs to be stabbed by all the daggers. Was this a plot hole? Or was this like some sort of opening so that we can maybe have another sequel?
Omen 4, The Awakening. The nightmare has just begun.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to call it a plot hole. Honorable mention number 2 is The Devil's Advocate. Came out in 1997. A movie about this devil centered around lawyers.
Oh, there's a fucking surprise.
Keanu Reeves plays the hotshot lawyer, and Charlize Theron learns that money can't buy happiness. But this is Al Pacino's barbecue, and he is hamming it up with his over-the-top performance, playing Lucifer himself. Unfortunately, he slaps on too much barbecue sauce as at the end of the movie, he's spitting out multiple monologues and he even does like this corny musical number.
It happened in Monterey a long time ago.
Even the daughter character is repeatedly telling him to shut the fuck up.
Will you stop talking? You talk too much.
Honorable mention number 3 is Deliver Us from Evil, came out in 2014. Possession in the Bronx? Yeah, I can see that. Police officer Sarchi investigates a series of crimes, and he ends up joining forces with an unconventional priest schooled in exorcism to combat the possessions terrorizing their city. This is a more action-based possession movie with Eric Bana's best attempts at a New York City accent. Despite that, it's solid and creepy, and this movie is actually based on true events. Kicking things off at number 31 is The Pope's Exorcist, just came out this year. Gabriel Amorth, the Vatican's leading exorcist, investigates the possession of a child and uncovers a conspiracy the Vatican has tried to keep. There's not much new here as far as possession, but Crow's charm adds production value. At the end of the day, the best thing going for this movie is that Father Amorth was an actual real exorcist from the Vatican, and he died in 2016. Coming in at number 30 is The Ninth Gate, came out in 1999. Johnny Depp plays Dean Corso, a shady procurer of rare books who's hired to investigate 3 books written by an author who is in league with the devil. The books, in theory, could conjure up the devil himself. This book detective premise is rather unique and very, very interesting. The movie is very cloak and dagger, with very little effects, but extremely effective. Coming in at number 29, I guess no list about unholy horror movies would be complete without a movie called The Unholy. It came out in 1988. An archbishop puts a priest in a New Orleans parish where Satan poses as a temptress in black. He begins to investigate why the former priest before him died. There's a satanic nightclub owned by a discount Billy Idol and a woman who works there and says that she's a virgin. It's B-level schlocky fun with some really, really nice effects and some boobs. Coming in at number 28 is It Lives Inside, came out this year. Desperate to fit in at school, Sam rejects her East Indian culture and family. However, when a mythological demonic spirit latches onto her former best friend, she must come to terms with her heritage and defeat it. It's really creepy with some good scares. There's a scene in which Sam and this boy that she likes are smoking a little weed that's all types of fucked up. Not the smoking of the weed, though. Coming in at number 27 is The First Power. Came out in 1990. This is a Lou Diamond Phillips vehicle. It's a little bit more action-based, but creepy all the same. Jeff Kober's face alone makes my skin crawl. That's why he's played so many villain roles. He plays an executed serial killer given the power to possess the weak by Satan himself. He's on a mission to make Phillips' life miserable as Phillips is playing the cop who put him away and had him executed. There's a psychic and there's a nun because of course, right? There's some really fun, great scenes. One involving like this homeless bag lady that I'll never forget. Coming in at number 26 is The Exorcist: The Beginning, came out in 2004. Rennie Harlan was asked to take a prequel and make it more Exorcist and less whatever the fuck it was. It's got some really, really dark stuff, some dark imagery, which I love. But it also suffers from some crappy dated effects. This movie proves there's something really wrong with me, as I think the possessed character Sarah is pretty fucking hot. Coming in at number 25 is The Exorcist Believer. Yup, just came out. I just reviewed it. This movie is currently being bashed by fans and some critics. And I'm hearing this may affect the status of the 2 future sequels. I stand by what I said in my recent review. It's a good, keyword good, possession movie, but a terrible legacy sequel on its own. I had a great theater experience. It dares to do something different. I thought it was pretty ballsy to not go the usual route with the two Catholic priests. Instead, we get an Avengers assembled group of parents, neighbors, and members of all different types of faith. Side note, in case I'm ever in this situation, please include popping and locking Cholo for Jesus.
Jesus Christ! There goes the enemy! So we hold up the sword of truth, Jesus Christ! Shield of faith!
Coming in at number 24 is The Nun 2. Also came out this year. I enjoyed this way more than the first Nun. The effects, the scares, and the story are all better. There's some visually stunning scenes like the magazine stand scene. I love the inclusion of the Eyes of St. Lucy, which is like this kind of MacGuffin that everybody was trying to get, including the Nun. Coming in at number 23 is Candicia. Came out in 2020. This is a French horror movie about a group of teens. One of them invokes a vengeful spirit known as a jinn. Jinns are supernatural spirits in the Muslim religion. They can be good, they can be bad. The good one is where you get the term genie from. The bad ones are more like demons. I found this fascinating as I've never seen a movie like this from a Muslim perspective. They even go to a mosque for help. This movie kind of followed a very similar template to Candyman. I don't know, they just seemed to have the same beats. They even had like the graffiti in the old beat up buildings. It's like in Candyman, the girl who summoned Candicia is taken for the proverbial ride. Coming in at number 22 is The Conjuring 2. Came out in 2016. I love the appearance of Amityville at the beginning. And this is where the Warrens are helping a family in England, although Lorraine doesn't sense any presence, which means the whole thing might be a scam. There's kind of a twist of events that didn't completely work for me, but I understand why it was done. I just don't think it was very well executed. This is the movie that introduces the nun, which is cool as it's all connected. It's got great effects, great scares, and a great ending. Coming in at number 21 is Nefarious, also came out this year. A serial killer on death row is given a psychiatric evaluation before his execution. But to the doctor's surprise, he claims to be possessed by a demon and actually wants to be executed. Is this a trick to convince a doctor that he's crazy? Some of the best movies are just two guys across a table in a battle of wits.
The battle of wits has begun.
Coming in at number 20 is Night of the Demons, came out in 1988. Goth teen Angela is having a Halloween party in an old haunted mansion. They awaken some demons and there's no way out. It's a very sexy 80s horror movie that features Scream Queen Linnea Quigley. After being demonized, Angela does this very seductive dance. It's one of the best dances in horror. If you're curious about dance and horror, I did a huge video while I was on vacation about the 10 greatest dances in horror. And not only did I talk about the dances, I actually attempted and failed each and every dance. But it was a very, very fun video. I highly recommend you check it out. There is a 2009 remake that doesn't have the charm of the original, but it really cranks up the sex. It makes me horny. Coming in at number 19 is John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. Came out in 1987. Dr. Loomis and Egg Chen discover a sour apple Slurpee machine in the cellar of an old church. The green liquid is actually a manifestation of the devil himself. It begins to grow and spread and chaos ensues. All of a sudden, the church is surrounded by homeless people, led by Alice Cooper. Actually, he did a really good job in this. He was really creepy. Whenever the liquid shot into somebody's mouth, I immediately This weekend, I got to go to my first Comic-Con 2023 NYC, and I got to meet the man himself, John Carpenter. It was a pretty special moment for me. Coming in at number 18 is Talk to Me, came out this year. This Australian horror movie is all the buzz as a group of kids mess around with an embalmed hand that can conjure spirits. But one of them goes too far and unleashes terrifying supernatural forces. It's got great atmosphere, great scares, and lots of shock moments. Coming in at number 17 is The Conjuring, came out in 2013. Paranormal investigators, the Warrens, help out a family who's just moved into a new home and are terrorized by a dark entity. There's much to love here. Lots of young children getting the shit scared out of them. There's a few great scenes involving an armoire, or is it a cabinet? I don't know, whatever. Just keeps like coming back to haunt these kids. It's got some great dark CGI effects, and it ends with an impromptu exorcism. Coming in at number 16 is Hereditary. Came out in 2018. This is elevated horror. This is A24, Ari Aster, and it centers around a struggling family dealing with loss. And then more loss, and then some more loss.
You won't learn our loss.
What? Loss is the key word here, but not all is as it seems.
Our pets' heads are falling off!
The scene where the high older brother driving little sis in the back seat surprised the shit out of me.
A fucker came out of nowhere.
And the final act creeped me the fuck out. Coming in at number 15 is The Manitou. Came out in 1978. This forgotten 70s gem is batshit crazy. This thing gets the Bonkers Award on my list. A Tony Curtis vehicle, yup, Jamie Lee's dad, and it's about a woman who develops a lump on her back that doctors can't seem to diagnose. They try surgery, but that just doesn't go very well. Her ex, played by Curtis, decides to do a seance, which discovers that the lump is a 400-year-old reincarnated fetus of a Native American medicine man that's looking to grow out of her and wreak destruction. Yeah, I just said that. This movie gets progressively crazier after every act. It's total 70s schlock, but that's the charm of it. The final act makes it a masterpiece of utter insanity. Coming in at number 14 is Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. Came out in 1986. I have huge nostalgia for this film, despite it being infinitely inferior to the original. But that priest, he still gives me nightmares. His look, his voice, the way he used to sing that creepy ass song. Coming in at number 13 is Evil Dead Rise. Came out this year. A struggling family discover the Book of the Dead locked up in a vault in the basement of their building. This movie is a wild, crazy ride, and the performance of the mother character makes this my favorite movie to watch on Mother's Day.
Let me with the maggots now.
Oh, that line is just so perfect. It's horror movie gold. I wasn't crazy about all the demonized family members combining like some sort of fucked up version of Voltron. But other than that, this movie's damn near perfect. Coming in at number 12 is Dario Argento's Demons. Came out in 1985. A group of people trapped in a West Berlin theater infested by demons who kill on sight, multiplying in numbers. It's basically Italian Evil Dead with more of a zombie formula. This movie has jaw-dropping practical effects. Obviously, the Italians know what they're doing when it comes to stuff like this. Lee McCoy, aka Drum Dums, says that first lady that gets demonized looks a lot like Rick James. Lee, I couldn't agree more. Coming in at number 11 is Damien, The Omen 2. Came out in 1978. While this is a few notches below the OG, there's plenty to love here. The idea of a crow being like the bringer and observer of death is a really nice touch. The kills are very inventive, with my favorite being one involving an elevator. Kicking off things for my top 10 is Evil Dead, the remake, came out in 2013. Some young adults take a friend to a cabin in the woods to help her kick a drug habit, not realizing that this is the same cabin from the Evil Dead movies, which has the Book of the Dead. This adds to the chaos as she realizes they need to get the fuck out of Dodge, but they all think it's just the addiction. This is easily the most bloody movie on this list. Coming in at number 9 is Amityville 2. The Possession came out in 1982, and it just happens to be my favorite Amityville movie. This is a prequel based on the original family that lived in the house before the events of the first movie. Burt Young, also known as Paulie from the Rocky movies, plays dear old dad.
Well, you have a reservation?
Do I look like a freaking Indian?
Diane Franklin, who you might recognize from either Better Off Dead or The Last American Virgin, is also a nice addition as she plays the daughter. This is a very, very dark story with everything from possession to children being killed. You want to make a horror movie even more fucked up? Add some incest and it'll definitely do the trick. Ugh. Coming in at number 8 is The Sentinel, came out in 1977. A model rents an upscale Brooklyn apartment thinking she got a great deal. She meets the neighbors, attends a few parties, but she's also having trouble sleeping, she's having nightmares, she's seeing things, she's seeing ghosts. So when she complains to her realtor and mentions the neighbors, she's told that no one else lives in the building other than one tenant on the top floor. As we are here at 10 Montague Terrace, this is where they filmed The Sentinel. That's the building right there. This area is a very bougie area in Brooklyn. The promenade's very beautiful, like little walkthrough. It's also a very famous area for movies. Just want to give you a little taste of Brooklyn and a little taste of movie history. Obviously, the top apartment is where the Sentinel resides. The building has definitely changed, but the area doesn't change much. It's always been a very gentrified area. It's for you cat lovers out there. There's an adorable cat that goes to all the parties. So if you want to see the party cat, check it out. Coming in at number 7 is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Came out in 2005. This possession / court drama basically puts faith on trial. It's gripping and powerful. So powerful, you might be questioning things after watching it. Jennifer Carpenter of Dexter fame really gives a great performance. I just thought it was ironic because in Dexter, she's cursing left and right.
We got this fucker. What fucking asshole left this here? Who's the skank? Who is she? And are you trying to fuck her or set her on fire?
In this movie, she doesn't say a single bad word. Coming in at number 6 is Evil Dead. Came out in 1981.
No! You must not read from the book!
I believe today is the anniversary of the debut of Evil Dead. It's a very historically significant movie about a group of people who go to a cabin in the woods and find the Book of the Dead. By movie standards, this movie costs pennies to make, yet it's incredibly effective. The scene where a woman gets violated by some nearby branches always kind of takes me back, as 80s movies usually don't go there. Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn is basically a remake or reboot of Part 1. Cranking up the comedy, adding slapstick comedy, this puts Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell on the map. Asking horror fans to choose which one of the two movies is better is like asking a parent who their favorite child is. Coming in at number 5 is Rosemary's Baby. Came out in 1968. I believe this is the oldest horror movie on this list. Some horror fans don't like this slow burn of a movie, but I think it's the tits. A masterpiece of tension and paranoia. The key word here is control, as in this woman doesn't really have any. Love the Manhattan setting, Young Mia Farrow is absolutely adorable. I just want to jump into the screen and rescue her from all this shit. The big scene where she's being held down while being penetrated by the devil himself is absolutely terrifying. Coming in at number 4 is The Exorcist 3. Came out in 1990. This is a direct sequel to the original that some say rivals it. Police Lieutenant Kinderman notices similarities between his current murder case and the methods used by the Gemini killer who was executed 15 years ago. He soon discovers a hospitalized mental patient claiming to be the Gemini killer, but looks uncannily like a priest he used to know that died during an exorcism. This movie has one of the greatest jump scares in horror history. Unlike a lot of modern horror movies who try to get you with jump scares, they're leaping at you, quick cuts, or they just go with the jump scare with the
Loud noises!
This one is more traditional, a scene that almost kind of relaxes you first, and then all of a sudden, wham. The genius of it is they follow it up with this scene with like mental patients crawling all over the ceiling, which just totally just creeps you out. Brad Dourif, who some might know as the voice of Chucky from Child's Play, he shows his chops in this. Me being from New York, I have to mention that while watching the movie for the first time, I noticed in a particular like dream sequence, a young guy named Patrick Ewing playing an angel. I don't know why no one mentions this. Coming in at number 3 is Poltergeist, came out in 1982. I grew up in the Steven Spielberg era, and although this is a Tobe Hooper film, this clearly has Spielberg's hands all over it. Stunning practical movie magic effects, the scene with the tree, the scene with the clown. Something about clowns always creeps people out. The rope scene with the tennis balls, the big swimming pool scene, which ended up being like a little bit of a controversial scene. It was said that they actually used dead bodies for all these scenes to cut costs. Like, I think it's definitely possible. This is also one of those movies that is believed to be cursed because a large amount of people from its cast, both in this movie and all of its sequels, just started dying. I don't believe that. I just think this is pure coincidence. And it's also very sad. And my runner-up to this big list is The Exorcist, came out in 1973. As I mentioned in my opening, I wasn't allowed to watch these movies as a young kid. Growing up, I heard all the big things about The Exorcist, the pea soup vomit, the twisting head, the levitating off the bed. And just like I mentioned, I ended up getting a video membership. One of the first movies I grabbed was The Exorcist. I wanted to see what was known at that time as the scariest movie ever made. So I sat down and watched it. It was a little bit of a letdown. It was more disturbing than scary. Honestly, I ended up finding the movie funny early on. Like, all the things that Reagan says, all the things that she does, I just got a lot of chuckles out of it. Continuing to watch it throughout the years, I got to see the more nuances of it. And I understood the genius of the fact that this movie is meant to make audiences feel extremely uncomfortable. Not just with the possession, not just with the exorcism scenes, even scenes like Reagan going through these medical exams. They're not done the same way like they were back then. That was pretty archaic stuff. So I've come almost a full circle, and I say this movie is an absolute masterpiece. And my number 1 unholy horror movie is The Omen, came out in 1976. When you're just a little kid being taken to church back in the 70s, usually forced to wear an ugly suit with a butterfly collar, the fear of God is as real as it gets. So hearing of a movie about the Antichrist terrified me and haunted my dreams. When I finally got to check it out, I immediately fell in love with the story. I learned about some of the real life tragedies surrounding making it. Anybody who has a child, imagine you found out that your child is the son of the devil and that you have to be the one to kill him. Who could do that? This is a child that you raised. All these kind of deaths surrounding Damien with the kind of like the power of the devil. Is it coming out of him? Is it coming out of the dog? Is it the devil himself? It's just a very special movie for me. One of the things that makes it so effective is the score, which has this really creepy chant. Every time I hear the chant, I immediately start thinking,
They're Gustavus. So long, Johnny. Me Gustavus. You Gustavus. We missed the bus. They missed the bus. Be brave, huh, Johnny? When's the next bus?
when they announced that they were going to do a remake in 2006, it was a really huge deal for me. I ran out opening night to see it, and I'm probably the only person on the planet that loves the remake. It has some differences. It has some imagery thrown in there. A few of the kills are differently. Well, guys, it's time to wrap this up. Whoever made it to the end, who's still with me, I really appreciate your support. Happy Halloween, happy October. And from the BK, the city that never sleeps,
See my face in lights,
peace,
on my
baby.
name on marquees found down on Broadway. Even if it ain't all it seems, I got a pocket full of dreams, baby. I'm from New York, concrete jungle.